Welcome to WhiskyCast, cask strength conversation featuring news and interviews from the world of whiskey. I'm Mark Gillespie, and this is episode number 1175 for August 16th, 2026. Coming up in a few minutes.
We're glad he came back. It's about the community, everything. I was one of these young kids getting an opportunity. So I think when you think back to where Bruichladdich was, and I always felt fortunate to be able to play a part in that.
This year, Bruichladdich is marking the 25th anniversary of its resurrection back in 2001. Adam Hannett has been there almost as long. He started work as a warehouseman in 2004, and last year was promoted from head distiller to master blender. He's created 3 new whiskeys to celebrate the 25th anniversary, including the new Greener Still. We'll talk and taste with Adam later on WhiskyCast In-Depth. I'll also have the week's tasting notes, behind the label, and much more. It's all ahead on this week's WhiskyCast, whiskey's longest-running and most awarded podcast series. Let's get started with the news. It's brought to you by Dewar's. Talks between the U.S. and Canada are scheduled this week, and the fate of the Canadian provincial boycott of American whiskeys and other spirits will hang in the balance. President Trump's latest round of tariffs on Canadian imports is set to go into effect on Wednesday. Trump used the provincial boycotts as justification for the tariffs. Polling shows most Canadians support the current ban and would likely refrain from buying American spirits if it were lifted. Hardliners like Ontario Premier Doug Ford and British Columbia Premier David Eby have said they have no intention of backing down and have called on the Canadian government to retaliate dollar for dollar if the new tariffs go into effect. New data from the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America this week showed that U.S. wine and spirits sales fell again during the second quarter of 2026, but there's some optimistic news in the report. The pace of decline eased for the third straight month during June, suggesting that the market is no longer weakening at the same rate seen earlier in the year. In English, sales are still falling, but not as sharply. Suntory released earnings for its Suntory Global Spirits division this week, with a slight uptick in sales over last year. However, operating income plunged by 24.6%. The company credited strong performance from domestic sales in Japan, along with India and the rest of the Asia-Pacific region. Suntory continues to face headwinds in the Americas, but noted that its Hibiki, Yamazaki, and Toki whiskeys outperformed in year-over-year sales, along with the Indian-exclusive Oaksmith whiskey. Let's talk about new whiskeys now. Jameson is bringing its distiller's batch single-pot still Irish whiskey to the U.S. It's matured in 5 different types of casks, including ex-bourbon, Oloroso sherry, and virgin Irish, European, and American oak. It'll carry a recommended retail price of $49.99 a bottle when it debuts next month. Texas's Garrison Brothers Distillery has announced the release date for its 2026 Cowboy Bourbon. The uncut and unfiltered bourbon came in at a whopping 70.5% ABV this year and will go on sale at the distillery with a release party on September 12th. It'll hit retailers October 1st with a recommended retail price of $249.99 a bottle. Indiana's Hard Truth Distilling is releasing its 3rd Master Distiller's Reserve Whiskey of the Year next month. Dark Roast Rye blends Hard Truth's caramel malt and chocolate malt mash bills. It'll debut this Friday night at Hard Truth's Cask and Still Social in Nashville, Indiana. The Glasgow Distillery Company has released its 2026 series of annual releases with a new sherry cask matured single malt alongside batch 2 versions of its 7-year-old Ruby Port cask matured whiskey and its 8-year-old bourbon cask matured whiskey. All 3 are priced at £59 each through the distillery's website. Tasmania's Callington Mill Distillery is out with the latest release in its Heritage Series, the Lake Frederick Inn. The series highlights historic buildings in the Oatlands, and the whiskey is matured in a Moscatel wine cask and bottled at cask strength. It's priced at $195 Australian a bottle through the distillery's website. The Chattanooga Whiskey Company is releasing its latest experimental whiskey. It's a Moldovan ice wine cask-finished whiskey. The team blended 5 malt whiskeys and a bourbon to go into the ice wine casks for more than a year's worth of finishing time. It went on sale Thursday at the distillery and will be available in Tennessee and 11 other states with a recommended retail price of $59.99 a bottle. India's Amrut Distilleries has released a new Indian single malt in the U.S. Kranthi is a non-chill filtered whiskey bottled at 40% ABV and is designed to be Amrut's flagship whiskey for the future. It's priced at $39.99 a bottle. The Lord of the Rings film trilogy celebrates its 25th anniversary this year, and there's a whiskey to mark the occasion. Lord of the Rings Ringbearer comes from New Zealand's Pocono Distillery and marries together whiskeys matured in 4 different types of casks: first fill and virgin American oak, muscat wine, and Manuka honey casks. It's being imported into the U.S. by Alexander Murray and Company and will sell through their website for $109.99 a bottle. The Glenallachie is out with batch 7 of its 21-year-old cask strength single malt. It's finished in a combination of PX and Oloroso sherry casks and is available through the Spirits Embassy for £297.98 a bottle. Redemption Whiskey is launching Redemption Single Barrel Bonded Bourbon, a 6-year-old bottled and bond whiskey that will go on sale next month for $49.99 a bottle. Signatory is releasing 6 new single-cask whiskeys, including 2 from an unnamed distillery that rhymes with McEwan. There's a 21 and an 18-year-old from that distillery, along with an 18-year-old Edredauer, a 15-year-old from an undisclosed Orkney distillery that rhymes with Highland Park, a 10-year-old Mortlach, and 4 separate Symington's Choice bottlings of Glenbergie 1995 30 years old, featuring 4 different sherry casks. All are available through the Aberdeen Whiskey Shop at prices ranging from £47.99 to £232.99 a bottle. And finally, Port of Leith Distillery is releasing 2 single malts under its Leith Bond label while it waits for its own whiskey to mature. There's an 8-year-old Royal Brackla finished in a Fino sherry hogshead and a 12-year-old Benriach matured in refill bourbon. It's priced at £79 a bottle through the distillery's website, while the Royal Brackla is priced at £65 a bottle. You can keep up on the latest whiskey news all week long at WhiskyCast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. The news is brought to you by Dewar's.
Throughout the years, Dewar's has created some incredible whiskeys, but our new Dewar's 12-year-old, that one's a personal favorite. It's the kind of scotch that earns praise from the pros, but still feels right at home in the middle of a good night with friends. Every pour opens up with notes of vanilla, toffee, baking spice, and a smooth oak finish. It's rich, it's approachable, and it has a way of bringing people together. Whether it's around the table, the fireplace, or just wherever the night happens to take you. Look, the glasses may hold the whiskey, but the whiskey, that's what holds the moment. Please enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025, Dewar's is a trademark. Imported by John Dewar & Sons Company, Coral Gables, Florida. Blended Scotch whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume.
Let's open up the calendar now and see what's coming up over the next couple of weeks. The Kensington Wine Market in Calgary, Alberta has a Thompson Brothers whiskey tasting coming up this Tuesday evening. Julio's Liquors in Westboro, Massachusetts hosts the folks from Dingle Distillery in Ireland for a Whiskey Wednesday tasting the next night. Whiskey Week Aberdeen gets underway on the 20th and runs through August 30th with events around Aberdeen, Scotland, including a mystery tasting Friday night at the Aberdeen Whiskey Shop. Moonshine University in Louisville, Kentucky hosts a Stave and Thief Society Executive Bourbon Steward course on Monday the 24th. The Kensington Wine Market has a Lafroig tasting on the 25th. And Bourbon's Bistro in Louisville hosts Denny Potter and Jane Bowie of Potter Jane Distillery for a tasting on the 26th. If you're organizing a whiskey event, let us know about it. We'll add it to the calendars at WhiskyCast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. WhiskyCast In-Depth is brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whisky. Bruichladdich Distillery is celebrating its 25th anniversary since being reopened in 2001, and master blender Adam Hannett has been there almost the whole time. He started out as a warehouseman rolling barrels in 2004, and the native Ilyak was promoted to master blender from head distiller last year. Hannett created 3 new whiskies to mark the anniversary, including the Greener Still, not only a continuation of the Still series of single malts, but a recommitment to the distillery's environmental goals. We talked this week on a Zoom call. So tell me about Greener Still.
So Greener Still is another release for our 25th anniversary, and what we are looking to do across the 25th anniversary is really celebrate some of the kind of milestones of the past, of the last kind of 25 years. And you may remember the Still series we had a few years ago, the Blacker Still, Golder Still, Redder Still. This is effectively a continuation of that release, whereas those releases were more about the cask influence, obviously, the kind of Oloroso or sherry cask influence in the Blacker Still. With the Greener Still, what we're looking to do is really kind of focus on the kind of sustainable barley growing element of things. So it's less about cask, more about the grain. So Greener Still is fantastic because it really brings together 3 kind of fantastic different barley varieties and kind of spirits we've been distilling over the years. So it's a 15-year-old Bruichladdich, 51.6% ABV, and you have bare barley. So the first component there is bare barley, which is obviously grown up in Orkney. It's kind of a heritage variety, very, very old. It's been grown up in the north of Scotland or across Scotland for around about 2,000 years. So really interesting grain to work with from the flavour that it brings. We've got some organically grown barley in there as well. So again, fantastic. Again, that we start to, back in 2003, we started working with organic growers to focus on, kind of less inputs, more kind of more traditional, more kind of green credentials, I suppose. And the last component in there is using biodynamically grown barley, so effectively taking organic to the next level, and really interesting kind of component for us, because typically we've always used Scottish barley because we want to have that provenance, that authenticity in our Scotch whisky. But to explore biodynamic, we had to kind of think about our principles. We had to think about what was important to us. And actually, this barley, there's no biodynamically certified growers in Scotland that we know of. There is down in Wiltshire, England. So we decided that it was more important for us to explore that flavour than just to contain that 100% Scottish barley kind of badge, if you like, on the whiskey. So it really brings together a lot of whiskies. Again, it's a 15-year-old, so these whiskies go back, all these components in the blend go back a long way. So it really celebrates that barley exploration, I suppose, of the last 25 years.
In tasting this, as your team sent me a sample of it, it's very malty, which I guess sort of belies that barley heritage.
Yeah, but very much so. Yeah, I think the malt, that kind of that flavour we get from it is really kind of grain forward. That maltiness really comes through. The bare barley brings a lot of that, but I think it brings again that kind of classic kind of Bruichladdich style, so that give that a bit of movement in the glass and a bit of air, and you're getting that lovely kind of vanilla, that lovely kind of toffee, but it's the fruit and the kind of floral notes that really, really come through. And I think what really, for me, underpins it all, like you say, is that maltiness, that kind of grain, that cleanliness that comes through. We're using 100% ex-bourbon barrel here, so American oak. It really looks after the spirit really well. So it doesn't just kind of dominate. It complements beautifully. So 15 years old, you've got this lovely... you kind of get in this lovely sweet spot, particularly with the bare barley, which brings that fruit sooner, particularly with the biodynamic that brings that fruit sooner. You're getting this lovely balance, but what we really want to have at the forefront of this is that grain character, is that maltiness. So exactly as you say, it's apparent in the glass.
I get a nice chocolate note on the palate too.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and I think on the palate, for me, again, even just looking at that in the glass, the viscosity is what comes through, and that's something we want in all of the spirit that we make. We want that viscosity, that texture. We want that to be there. So it's natural whiskey. We're not taking anything away. There's no chill filtration. It's all natural whiskey. But I think what you find with those grains that we use, the bear barley in particular, you get less yield, you get less alcohol from every ton of barley you use, but you get more flavor, you get more character, more viscosity, more texture. And again, I'll have a little sip of this just for research purposes, of course. But having a little taste of this,
of course,
the flavor is it's this wonderful. It's this wonderful fruit, but you get so much from the grain. Let's say that chocolate, these kind of lovely notes that come through. So Sláinte.
Sláinte. Oh, that's nice.
Beautiful. We always have moments through the year where we taste, the whiskies that are coming up for release, kind of with the team, just kind of casually internally. And we were sitting down with the production team, and I had samples of the whiskies we were releasing across this 25th kind of anniversary year. And there's some really exciting stuff, but this is the one that I think just it really went down really across the board. Everybody loved this whiskey. Obviously the yellow sub, fantastic, great stuff there. The old school, again, a fantastic whiskey, but this was the one that everyone came back for a second round of. So I think when everyone who's spent all this time making the whiskey is sitting there enjoying this whiskey, that to me that's a lovely moment to kind of see everyone enjoying it.
Let's talk about those other two whiskeys that you released for the 25th anniversary, Old School and Yellow Submarine 3. Let's talk about Old School first. What went into making it?
So Old School, yeah, it's a really great idea. Again, it celebrates the Islay connection. It celebrates that Islay barley kind of provenance. So it is obviously 100% Islay grown barley in that whiskey. 10 years old, but to really kind of celebrate that, the history of that. We've been laying down this whiskey for so long. I took whiskey from every single vintage that we still had back to 2004 as components for that whiskey. So although it was 10 years old, the youngest whiskey was 10. There was every single vintage that we have whiskey left of. Going back to the original 2004 distillation. So again, it really celebrated, encapsulated what we've done, I suppose in bringing that connection back of growing barley locally on the island into making whiskey, because, it's so important to us that Bruichladdich, that Islay is not just a postcode, it's not just a location you make, or just trade on the name, actually working with the growers, working with the farmers to I suppose learn and raise a crop every year, to improve, to get better, to think about the sustainability, to think about the land management, to think about the challenges they have, ultimately to make a whiskey that has the flavors of the island in there, that has that provenance, that authenticity. But again, it's putting back into our local community. It's over the years, there's been so many growers. So again, that was part of the design. The packaging was that everyone who's played a part in that, every grower over the years who's sent barley into the distillery, and indeed not just the growers, but there's an unsung hero called Andrew Wood down at Octobad, who when the harvest is going on, he's intaking, he's storing, and he's all of the farmers are delivering their barley to him all at once. So for 24 hours a day, him and his team are recording that barley coming in, they're storing it, they're drying it, they're looking after it for us as it gets shipped up to the malting. So really to kind of talk about all of those things that go on to make this happen, because working with 20 growers just on the island, for half of your barley is a lot more effort than most people go to. Typically it's the malts that just provides 100% of what you need when you need it. But for us to be involved in that community effort, to be involved in the whole thing as whiskey maker, it's really interesting because you get to see the barley ripening. It's right in front of you. There's a farmer called John McPherson who his land is right in front of my house, so I can sit out by my living room window. I can sit on the deck outside and I can see that barley growing through the year. So that connection is really important to us. So that's what Islay Barley was all about. We're kind of celebrating what that is, and again, making a whiskey that has a great story but a great flavour. And I think it was a whiskey that, again, internally, externally, it went down really well. It's a great story. It's a beautiful bottle, lovely label, and all of that counts for nothing without great whiskey inside the bottle. So that was a lovely moment for us to kick off the 25th anniversary with that release.
And you couldn't resist but to release a Yellow Submarine 3.
Yeah, exactly that. It was, I think it really encapsulated, I suppose, again, over the last 25 years, you'll know just as well as most, we like a good story at Bruichladdich. There's many things, and that kind of the weapons inspectors, the Yellow Submarines, all of these stories, are a bit of fun. We kind of think of it as, making whiskey is great, and you can have great stories, and whiskey you can take whiskey too seriously, and I think we always like to have a laugh and a joke. And when these stories come up, and it goes back to the days where we had no marketing budget, no marketing team, and making up or taking advantage of these kind of stories, if you like, where the US government monitoring our whiskey making facility in case we make chemical weapons. Making the most of a story like that was good for us in the early days to gather a bit of attention. And to kind of, again, have a laugh and a joke and take some of that seriousness away. And really, again, it's, the Yellow Submarine. I mean, who would have thought, you had a yellow submarine caught by the fishermen, just off the coast. And, these kind of things don't happen every day. So for us to kind of take that, run with it, and add it to the story about the weapons inspectors and build upon it, it was just good fun. It's the kind of thing that, I think we've been known for over the years. And so bringing out another release of that, kind of harking back, it was a great challenge, again, from a whiskey point of view, to taste that original sample and to think about the stocks we had and would be recreated. And actually, rather than recreate it, it became, how do we build upon it? How do we kind of think about what we've done over the last 25 years to create a new version? So 14 years, but rather than acing, as we used to do, where you take whiskey that was, obviously was made years ago and recask it into something new. We had whiskey, 14-year-old whiskey that had been in, again, fantastic pedigree casks, from day one, these lovely Bordeaux red wines, so being able to utilize that and kind of build upon that initial idea was really interesting from a whiskey point of view as well, and a great whiskey. We had great fun with that. I was just reading some of the breakdown from that, from the team about, it was launched in Glasgow. We had the Sub Club, which is a bit of a Glasgow institution, a music venue. We had kind of worked with them, to make the Yellow Sub Club, and the Islay Inn in Glasgow as well was, a bit of a home for home from a lot of Islay in Glasgow. So being able to kind of connect locally and then see that, out in New York, I think there was events out on the Hudson River. There was events out in Shanghai as well. So really to see that little story of a Yellow Submarine, getting caught in a fisherman's net all those years ago, translated across the world and kind of bringing whiskey to people's lips and into people's lives was a lovely thing. So, two great whiskies, and then we're following that up with the Greenest Still, which, again, behind everything, it's a fantastic whiskey and just tells another element of the story that is Bruichladdich.
You grew up on the island watching the resurrection of Bruichladdich. What does it mean to you to be the master blender all those years later?
That's a really great question. I think you're right. I grew up here, and I think I've probably said to you before. Like growing up on the island, you don't appreciate whiskey as much as you maybe should, because as a kid you take it for granted. There's distilleries, everywhere you turn. You throw a stone, you'll hit a distillery. There's that many. And I think, growing up and then kind of as I got older and appreciating it a bit more and understanding that it's kind of integral to the way of life here, watching Bruichladdich come back to life, and then getting an opportunity back in 2004 to be part of the story, and really, with Jim McEwan, with Duncan McGillivray, these whiskey legends, be able to work alongside them and soak up their knowledge, their passion, their work ethic, and to feel part of something. When Bruichladdich came back, it's about the community, everything. I was one of these young kids getting an opportunity. So I think when you think back to where Bruichladdich was, and I always felt fortunate to be able to play a part in that. And I'll tell stories of Duncan. He was quite tight. We didn't have much money back in the early days, and as a warehouseman, you go up to Duncan and say, Duncan, I've got a hole in my glove. Can I get a new pair? And he says, well, which glove do you want, left or right? He wouldn't give you both gloves. So it was only one that needed replacing. So, this kind of thing, being part of that, those early days were really good, and you were proud to be doing it. You wanted to be doing it, and doing something different and making your mark. And you could see, the enthusiasm when you had visitors back to the distillery, from all over the world, that enthusiasm and that passion, that connection, because of what we do day in, day out was fantastic. So, yeah, over the years, I've been really lucky to be trusted to kind of take on more responsibility, to be able to get involved in more things. And I suppose, back when Jim retired, being able to take over from him as the head distiller, and then again recently last year, being able to I was promoted to master blender, and it's a huge honour. It really is. But I still feel the same way as I did when back in the early days. It's just glad to be a part of it, thankful to be a part of it, and long may it continue, because I start to appreciate, as I'm getting older in years, the legacy, I suppose, the fact that, you're making whiskey for the future. A lot of what we're making just now will be for future people, for future generations to lay down and, to put into bottle. They'll lay down their own stocks for the future generations after that. So, there's not many industries like that where, the results are not instant. This is a 15-year-old whiskey we've got in front of us. So the actions and the decisions we took 15 years ago in making that spirit are what we get to taste today. So, as we make spirit today, it could be another 10, 15, 20 years before that whiskey is able to be tasted and enjoyed and talked about by a different generation. So I think that's a really exciting thing. I've been able to pass on as much as I can, and just keep maintaining that what we do and playing a part and developing further. It fills me with huge amounts of pride. It really, really does.
Obviously, you're still a few years away from retirement, but have you started the process of identifying a successor?
Well, that's a good question, and it's funny you should say that, because sitting opposite me in this room is a young lady called Lisa Matthews, who's just come into the team as assistant blender. She's waving. I don't know, you'll not see that, but so Lisa has come on as assistant blender. So Lisa's great. She's young local woman. She's great passion for whiskey, great knowledge, great experience in the industry already. So we're lucky to have her on the team, and over the years, hopefully she can pick up more and more of what we do, and again, the new ideas she brings as well are really, really exciting. So absolutely. Hopefully I've still got a few years left in me, but if I get knocked down by a bus tomorrow, at least there's somebody else who knows where all the recipes are and how to put them together,
including the black art.
Now the black art, I don't know about that. That's a different question. I think that if that bus does knock me down, then I think Lisa will have to develop her own black art, much as I did. That's the fun of it, I think.
Thanks to Bruichladdich Adam Hannett for joining us on this week's WhiskyCast In-Depth. It's brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey.
Our story begins in the wilds of County Wicklow, the Garden of Ireland, a place where nature moves slowly and meaningfully. Some whiskies blend in. Glendalough Double Barrel stands apart. I'm Rowdy Rooney, head distiller here at Glendalough, and I personally oversee our whiskey making process from start to finish. We do things slowly, and we do them right. We start with a smooth, single-grain Irish whiskey. We age it in flame-charred American oak for soft vanilla and a honeyed depth. Then we finish it in Oloroso casks from a small bodega in Spain. Casks we season and ship ourselves to make sure the wood is still alive with character when it arrives. That kind of care gives Glendalough Double Barrel its rich layers of dried fruit, warm spice and signature smoothness. This is a whisky at its own pace, and it's worth every second. This is Glendalough Double Barrel, crafted to stand apart.
This week's tasting notes are brought to you by Lost Lantern Whisky. Let's start off with the Bruichladdich Greener Still. Once again, it's 15 years old and bottled at 51.6% ABV. The nose has floral touches of honeysuckle, lavender, heather, and rosemary, along with hints of apple cobbler and toasted oak. The taste has an excellent balance of barley sugar, pears, cinnamon, honey, and chocolate, while the finish is long with touches of apples, pears, and vanilla. I'm scoring the Bruichladdich Greener Still a 93. Last month, Heaven Hill unveiled its Double Mash Bourbon, a bottled and bond blend of its traditional bourbon mash bill and its wheated mash bill. I received a sample this week. It's 9 years old and, of course, bottled at 50% ABV. The nose has touches of orange oil, honey, toasted oak, and a hint of spice. The taste has notes of orange marmalade, white pepper, cinnamon, honey, and caramel candy. The finish is long with lingering spices and a touch of honey. I'm scoring Heaven Hill's Double Mash Bourbon a 93. Let's wrap up with the new 9-year-old rye whiskey from the Larrikin Bourbon Company in Kentucky. This one is a single-barrel rye bottled at cask strength, 61.25% ABV. The nose has rye spices, caramel, honey, and toasted oak. Cinnamon and black pepper dominate the palate, then fade slowly to reveal honey and caramel notes, while the finish is long and spicy. I'm scoring the Larrikin single-barrel rye a 91. This week's tasting notes are brought to you by Lost Lantern Whisky and the United States of Bourbon, a groundbreaking blend of bourbons from all 50 states. Lost Lantern co-founders Nora Ganley Roper and Adam Polanski spent more than 5 years visiting distilleries to find bourbons worthy of representing each state. It's one of the most ambitious projects in American whiskey, and in keeping with Lost Lantern's commitment to full transparency, every one of the distilleries is listed on the label. Together they create a singular portrait of the diversity, innovation, and character defining American whiskey today. Find out more at LostLanternWhiskey.com. Lost Lantern, shining a light on the independent spirit. Let's open up the WhiskyCast community app now and see what people are talking about this week. Whiskey Dev in Malaysia posted a lengthy comment on bourbons and cocktails from Vietnam, where he's traveling this week. To my whiskey-drinking friends, I'd like to ask for your opinion. My go-to cocktail to judge all bars is a Boulevardier, a simple cocktail. I always ask what bourbon they use, and if the answer is Jim Beam, I immediately say, please cancel. I just won't consume cocktails with Jim Beam Original White Label, as I consider it characterless and boring. I am not a fan of Jack Daniel's No. 7, too, as I feel it reminds me of the smell of cockroach after you've squashed it. Surprisingly, I've never encountered a cocktail bar in Asia using Jack Daniel's No. 7 as a cocktail-based bourbon. My preferred bourbon for a cocktail, leaving out premium bourbons, would be Maker's Mark. Now to my question. Can you taste the character of the bourbon used in a cocktail once mixed in? I feel a Jim Beam-based Boulevardier is flat and boring. The Maker's Mark, or Bulleit, or Elijah Craig, or many other bourbons give the cocktail more character. Am I biased or just imagining things? I must arrange for a blind taste test of my taste buds one day. My apologies to anyone related to either Jim Beam or Jack Daniels. I do enjoy some premium expressions from the distilleries, just not their base product. Jack Single Barrel is one of my favorite bourbons. Well, Dev got several responses. From Greg, a good bourbon does make the drink in my humble opinion. From Scott Rogers, I don't agree with your preferences, but I agree completely that the character of a bourbon is absolutely tasteable in a cocktail. The main things for me are proof, 40% versus 50% makes a world of difference, and recipe, high corn versus high rye makes a world of difference too. And from Juan Cruz, I completely agree with Greg and Scott. As a fellow whiskey drinker originally from the tropics, I am not sure that your squashed cockroach smell assessment of Old No. 7 is either accurate or fair. My wife introduced me to whiskey via Old No. 7 30 years ago, so it is part of my whiskey history. I respect your opinion, though. Recommend trying different cocktails, changing only the whiskey variable to see how things change. And we all know that the type and strength of the cocktail ingredients will have an impact on how the whiskey shines through or not. In the end, drink what you like and want, the way you like and want it. Sláinte. Thanks for the comments, guys. What's your take? Download the free WhiskyCast community app from your app store and join the conversation. You can also find us on social media. Look for WhiskyCast on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook. Our email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Let's close out the show now with Behind the Label, our look at the science, history, and people who make whiskey unique. Ever wonder why some whiskeys have a touch of mango on the nose? No need to wonder anymore. We now know what's causing that mango-like aroma. Researchers at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh and Kirin in Japan have identified some of the chemical compounds that contribute to that mango-like aroma. They studied 14 whiskies from Scotland and Ireland and found that the presence of aldehydes and acetyls increased tropical aromas. Aldehydes and acetyls are usually found in whiskey, but the researchers found high levels of 3 specific compounds in one mango-smelling whiskey. The Drinks Business reports that when these 3 compounds were added to a whiskey that had tested low for mango notes, the mango-ness scent increased substantially. Heriot-Watt's Dr. Callum Holmes says the 3 compounds, which have really long names that are easy to trip over, are well understood, and the knowledge may help distillers dial up or tone down tropical characteristics in their whiskeys as desired. The study was published in the Journal of the American Society of Brewing Chemists. If there's something you'd like us to look at on an upcoming episode, just get in touch with us. That's all for this episode of WhiskyCast. You'll find links for the stories in this episode in our show notes at whiskycast.com. That's also where you can find the latest whiskey news, my tasting notes, the calendar of events, the whiskey photo of the week, and, of course, a complete archive of past episodes going all the way back to 2005. Please remember to leave a 5-star rating or review for WhiskyCast in your favorite podcast app. That helps other whiskey lovers discover the show. We love to hear from you. Download the free WhiskyCast community app from your app store. Look for us on all of the major social media platforms, or just email us. The address is comments@whiskycast.com. WhiskyCast is a production of Cask Strength Media, copyright 2026, and comes to you from the charming, yet regrettably dry town of Haddonfield, New Jersey. I'm Mark Gillespie, reminding you that when you drink, please drink responsibly. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.